"You can't do this. I know my rights." This is body cam footage from the career-ending incident of Officer Dale Harding, badge number 9154. On October 26th at 15:40 hours, Officer Harding initiated a stop on a vehicle in the affluent suburb of Northgate Heights. He believed he was confronting a trespasser. Seconds would result in Officer Harding's termination, a federal lawsuit, and a total quantified financial loss exceeding $2.2 million. This is a documented record of that encounter. The afternoon of October 26th had been, until that point, entirely unremarkable for Marcus Thorne. The crisp autumn air carried the scent of decaying leaves and chimney smoke, a familiar perfume for the manicured streets of Northgate Heights. Inside his 2023 Audi e-tron, the silence was almost absolute, broken only by the soft strains of a Vivaldi concerto playing through the premium sound system and the quiet tap of his fingers on his secured government-issued tablet. He had just concluded a conference call regarding the sentencing phase of a complex racketeering case he had successfully prosecuted, a victory that had taken 2 years of his life. The fluorescent lights of the federal courthouse were a stark contrast to the warm, fading sunlight filtering through the sycamore trees lining the street. He was parked, legally and unobtrusively, a few doors down from the Victorian-style home where his 10-year-old son, Leo, was finishing his weekly piano lesson. It was a routine he cherished, a quiet 45-minute buffer between the immense pressures of his job and the joys of fatherhood. He glanced at the clock on the dashboard, 15:38. Leo would be out in 7 minutes. Marcus allowed himself a rare moment of stillness, closing his eyes and letting the music wash over him. He was a man defined by precision and control, a veteran of the Department of Justice for 15 years, whose life was a testament to discipline. His case files were immaculate, his arguments in court were surgical, and his demeanor was perpetually calm. This calmness was not a facade, it was a tool, honed through years of navigating contentious courtrooms and dismantling the arguments of seasoned defense attorneys. It was the bedrock of his success. Outside this silent, climate-controlled sanctuary, another reality was unfolding. Patrol Unit 7 Atom 9, driven by Officer Dale Harding, was making its rounds. Harding's internal monologue, a bitter stream of resentment and suspicion, was a constant companion on these patrols through Northgate Heights. He saw the neighborhood not as a community to protect, but as a territory to be kept pure, a pristine fishbowl he was tasked with keeping free of algae. His personnel file, a document that would later become a key exhibit in federal court, painted a clear picture. 14 citizen complaints in 3 years, 9 of which explicitly alleged racial bias. Each one had been internally investigated and dismissed, a pattern of institutional protection that had emboldened Harding's behavior. He viewed the law not as a set of principles to be upheld, but as a weapon to be wielded against those he unilaterally deemed unworthy. As he turned on Maple Avenue, his eyes locked onto the gleaming obsidian shell of the Audi e-tron. It was new, expensive, and in his worldview, completely out of place. More specifically, the silhouette of the man inside it was out of place. Harding didn't need to run the plates. He didn't need to observe a traffic violation. His gut, a toxic brew of prejudice and authority, told him everything he needed to know. He made a sharp U-turn, the tires of his patrol car chirping in protest, and pulled in directly behind the Audi. At 15:42 hours, the tranquil world inside Marcus Thorne's vehicle was shattered by the sudden, jarring flash of red and blue police lights painting his rearview mirror. The Vivaldi concerto was instantly drowned out by the piercing reality of the situation. Marcus felt no panic, only a familiar, weary sense of resignation. He powered down his tablet, placed his hands visibly on the steering wheel at the 10 and 2 position, and waited. The patrol car's door slammed shut with a percussive clap that echoed down the quiet street. Bodycam footage from Unit BWC 9154 documents Officer Harding's approach. His stride was aggressive, his hand resting casually on the grip of his holstered Glock. He bypassed the passenger side, opting for a direct, confrontational approach to the driver's window. He didn't tap politely, he rapped his knuckles hard against the glass, the sound sharp and demanding. Marcus lowered the window smoothly. The crisp air and Harding's palpable hostility flooded the car. Before Marcus could even ask what the problem was, Harding spoke, his voice a low growl of immediate accusation. "Step out of the vehicle." Marcus's legal mind cataloged the procedural errors in an instant. There was no greeting, no statement of cause, no request for license and registration. It was a pure, unlawful command. He maintained his composure, his voice even and steady as he looked at the officer. "Good afternoon, officer. Is there a problem?" Harding's eyes narrowed.
He leaned in, his face now framed in the open window. "I'll be the one asking the questions," I said. "Get out of the car, now." Marcus made a deliberate, slow movement, reaching for his wallet. He calmly retrieved his driver's license and the vehicle's registration from the glove compartment, holding them out. "My license and registration are here, officer. I'm legally parked and waiting to pick up my son from his piano lesson. I'd be happy to comply with any lawful orders, but I'd first like to know the reason for this stop." Harding ignored the documents entirely. His gaze was fixed on Marcus, a sneer twisting his lips. He saw the calm demeanor not as a sign of a law-abiding citizen, but as the insolence of a criminal who thought he was clever. He was about to teach this man a lesson about who held the power on this street. He deliberately unclipped the strap on his holster, a small but significant act of intimidation. "For the last time," he said, his voice dropping an octave, "get out of the vehicle before I pull you out." He was escalating a routine he had invented into a physical confrontation, a critical miscalculation that would initiate the complete and documented destruction of his life. The footage from BWC 9154 documents the precise moment the encounter deviates from a procedural error into a full-blown civil rights violation. Officer Harding does not even glance at the proffered license and registration. His eyes, narrowed into slits of contempt, remain locked on Marcus Thorne. He lets out a short, derisive huff of air, a sound thick with dismissal. "Anyone can get a fancy ID," he says, the words captured clearly by his lapel microphone. His gaze drifts from Marcus's face to the luxurious interior of the Audi, the supple leather, the polished aluminum trim, the glow of the large infotainment screen. "This car doesn't belong to you. I'm going to need you to tell me where you stole it." The accusation is baseless, a pure fabrication born from a worldview that could not reconcile a black man with this level of success. It is a statement made without any evidence, without even the cursory step of running the license plate, a process that would have taken less than 30 seconds and would have immediately confirmed that the 2023 Audi e-tron was in fact registered to Marcus Thorne, with a lien held by a federal credit union. Marcus shows no surprise. His expression remains a mask of professional calm, but his mind is working with the speed of a supercomputer, processing Harding's every word, every gesture as data points for a future legal filing. He recognizes this critical juncture. The officer has now articulated a specific, albeit false, criminal accusation. This transforms the unlawful stop into something far more serious. With a slow, deliberate motion that ensures his hands are always visible, Marcus retrieves his personal cell phone from the center console. He taps the screen 3 times, activating a preset shortcut that begins recording video. "For the record, officer," he states, his voice perfectly level, "I am now documenting this interaction. You have refused to identify a lawful reason for this stop. You have ignored my valid identification, and you have now accused me of grand theft auto without a shred of evidence. Under the 4th Amendment, my detainment is now unlawful." Harding watches the phone's red recording light blink to life, and his face flushes a deep, mottled red. He perceives this action not as a citizen protecting his rights, but as a direct challenge to his authority. The very idea that this man would dare to create his own record of events is an intolerable affront. The officer's training, what little of it he retained, evaporated in a hot cloud of pure ego. "What do you think you're doing?" Harding's voice rises in pitch, cracking with barely contained fury. "You think your little phone scares me?" The body cam footage shows his right hand moving from the grip of his Glock to the handle of his taser, a clear escalation in the use of force continuum. He is telegraphing his intent, broadcasting his loss of control for the official record. Marcus, however, does not react to the threat. His focus is absolute. He continues to speak with the measured cadence of a lawyer dictating a legal brief. "Officer Harding, badge 9154, you are creating significant legal jeopardy for yourself and for your department. I am again requesting that you articulate the reasonable suspicion that justifies this detainment. If you cannot, I am requesting that you return to your vehicle and call your commanding officer to this location." Each word is a perfectly placed stone, building a wall of legal fact that Harding is determined to smash through with brute force. The officer's internal monologue, later inferred from his agitated statements in the internal affairs interview, was a chaotic storm of indignation. He was convinced he was being played, that he was dealing with a sovereign citizen or some kind of professional agitator who used legal jargon to escape accountability. He was incapable of conceiving that he was in the presence of someone who not only understood the law, but wielded it at the highest levels. "This is your last chance," Harding snarls, his hand now tightening on the taser.
Get out of the car or I will remove you from it, and I promise you, you will regret it. He leans closer, his face now inches from Marcus's, the scent of stale coffee and aggression filling the car.
He believes he has cornered his prey, that this final, direct threat of violence will finally break the man's composure. He made a fatal error, misjudging the man before him, not just on the basis of his skin color, but on the very nature of his power. He was trying to intimidate a man whose entire career was built on dismantling bullies far more powerful than him, and he had just provided the irrefutable, video-documented evidence needed to do it. If you were in this situation, with your rights being violated on camera, what would be your very next move? Tell us your thoughts in the comments section, and if you believe in justice, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the outcome of this case. The body cam footage, time-stamped at 15:49 hours, 7 minutes into the stop, captures the moment the encounter should have ended. It is the precise point where Officer Harding is given a final opportunity to de-escalate. Instead, he chooses to demolish his career. Marcus Thorne looks away from the officer for a fraction of a second, his gaze directed squarely at the lens of BWC 9154, ensuring his next words are recorded with absolute clarity for the inevitable legal proceedings. "Officer Harding," he says, his voice a steady, dispassionate instrument of fact. "For the record, my name is Marcus Thorne. I am the Senior Assistant United States Attorney for this district. You are currently attempting to unlawfully detain a federal prosecutor. Your actions constitute a violation of Title 18, Section 242 of the U.S. Code. I advise you to return to your vehicle and call your supervisor immediately." The audio log captures a 2-second pause. It is the sound of Harding's entire professional world grinding to a halt, his prejudiced assumptions colliding with an irrefutable, high-level reality he cannot process. But his ego, a fragile and overinflated thing, rejects the data. It interprets this statement not as a life raft, but as the most audacious lie he has ever heard. A short, sharp bark of laughter escapes him, a sound utterly devoid of humor. "A federal prosecutor?" he sneers, his voice dripping with condescending disbelief. "Sure, and I'm the President of the United States." This is the point of no return. His mind, unable to reconcile the cognitive dissonance, defaults to aggression. He sees this as the ultimate gambit from a cornered criminal, a last-ditch effort to use big words to escape justice. He decides to call the bluff, to escalate so far and so fast that this man's fabricated reality will shatter against the hard wall of his authority. The footage shows him turning slightly, deliberately breaking eye contact as he reaches for the radio microphone clipped to his shoulder. This action is documented not only by his own camera and Marcus's phone, but by at least 3 high-definition private security cameras mounted on the neighboring multi-million-dollar homes, their silent, digital eyes capturing every angle of the unfolding disaster. He depresses the transmit button, his voice a strained, self-important declaration broadcast across the city's law enforcement channels. "Unit 7 Adam 9, he barks, requesting supervisor and additional unit to my location, Maple Avenue. I have a non-compliant subject in a suspected stolen vehicle claiming to be a federal official." He releases the button, a smug look of finality on his face. He believes he has won. The radio crackled back almost instantly with a calm female voice from dispatch. "Copy, 7 Adam 9. Supervisor and backup are en route." The silence that followed Harding's radio call was thick with his own self-satisfaction. He had followed his gut, cornered the suspect, and called in the cavalry to witness his triumph. He turned back to the man in the car, a smirk playing on his lips, ready to deliver a final, condescending lecture before his supervisor arrived to pat him on the back. But Marcus Thorne had not moved. He hadn't flinched. His expression was one of profound, almost academic patience, like a professor waiting for a disruptive student to finally exhaust himself. It was this stillness, this utter lack of fear, that began to plant the first tiny seed of doubt in Harding's mind. Then Marcus moved. The motion was slow, telegraphed, and utterly deliberate. He did not reach for the glove compartment or the console. Instead, his right hand moved to the inside pocket of his tailored suit jacket. Harding's training kicked in, his body tensing, his hand instinctively dropping back to a sidearm. He was ready for a weapon, for a last act of desperation. What emerged was not a weapon, but something far more devastating. It was a black leather credential case, thick and substantial. He did not flick it open with a dramatic flourish.
He unfolded it with the quiet reverence of a man handling a sacred text. The interior revealed two sides. On the right, a laminated identification card bearing his photograph, a serious, professional image that matched the man in the driver's seat perfectly. Beneath it, in bold, unambiguous letters, were the words United States Department of Justice. On the left, recessed into the leather, was a heavy, gold-plated medallion, intricately detailed with the seal of the Attorney General of the United States, an eagle clutching a bundle of arrows and an olive branch. It gleamed in the fading afternoon light, a beacon of immense and unassailable power.
Marcus held it up, positioning it just below his chin so that Harding could clearly see his face and the credential in the same line of sight. "Officer Harding," he said, and his voice was no longer just calm. It was now imbued with the full weight of the federal government. "My name is Marcus Thorne, badge number US DOJ 07742. I am the Senior Assistant United States Attorney for this federal district." The words hung in the air, each one a hammer blow against the fragile structure of Harding's reality. His smirk faltered, then vanished completely, replaced by a slack-jawed confusion. His mind raced, desperately trying to find an explanation that fit his preconceived narrative. "It's a fake," he thought, "a high-quality forgery from some sovereign citizen lunatic." He let out a short, choked laugh, a pathetic attempt to regain control. "That's a nice prop," he stammered, his voice suddenly thin and reedy. "Where did you buy it?" But his eyes betrayed him. They darted back and forth between the unyielding face of Marcus Thorne and the gleaming gold seal, a symbol he had only ever seen in training videos and official buildings. He saw the microscopic details, the precision of the engraving, the utter authenticity of it all. The blood began to drain from his face, leaving a pale, clammy sheen of sweat on his forehead. The expensive car, the calm, surgical use of legal terminology, the refusal to be intimidated, it all clicked into place with a horrifying, sickening finality. This was not a criminal. This was not a trespasser. He had not pulled over a suspect. He had attempted to unlawfully detain one of the most powerful legal figures in the entire state. At that exact moment, a new sound pierced the quiet suburban air. It wasn't a siren, but it wasn't the familiar singular yelp of his supervisor's patrol car. It was multiple sirens, a chorus of them, wailing with an urgency and speed reserved for officer down calls or active shooter situations. They were getting closer, fast. Harding's stomach plummeted. He realized with a surge of pure, cold dread that the cavalry was indeed coming. But they weren't coming for Marcus Thorne. They were coming for him. If you want to see the complete and total ruin of Officer Harding's career, hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. You will not want to miss the fallout from this catastrophic mistake. The symphony of sirens grew from a distant wail to a deafening street-level crescendo. Within seconds, the quiet suburban block was transformed into a tableau of official response. Two unmarked black sedans, low-slung and menacing, screeched to a halt in front of the Audi, boxing it in. Simultaneously, a marked supervisor's SUV, lights blazing, pulled up alongside Harding's patrol car. The doors of all three vehicles flew open in a coordinated, urgent display. The body cam footage from Officer Harding's unit, BWC 9154, wobbles as he instinctively turns towards the new arrivals, his mind still struggling to process the impossible truth presented by the DOJ credentials. Out of the supervisor's vehicle stepped Captain Eva Rostova, a woman whose stern reputation preceded her. Her face, etched with the stress of command, was a mask of alarm. Her eyes swept the scene in a practiced 3-second assessment. Harding's aggressive stance, the expensive car, and the calm, familiar face in the driver's seat. A flicker of disbelief, followed by sheer horror, crossed her features. The audio log from her own body cam, Unit BWC 701, captures her sharp intake of breath. "Marcus!" she exclaimed, her voice cutting through the siren's dying wail. "My God, is everything all right?" Her use of his first name was not a question, but an exclamation of shocked recognition. She strode forward, her gaze fixed on Marcus, completely ignoring her subordinate officer. Then her attention snapped back to Harding with the force of a physical blow. Her voice dropped 10 degrees, becoming a blade of ice and authority. "Officer Harding, stand down. Holster your weapon. Stand down, now."
The command was not a suggestion. It was an order laced with the promise of severe repercussions. Harding flinched as if struck. The two men who had exited the unmarked sedans, both clad in tactical polos bearing the distinct block-lettered insignia of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, moved to flank the scene. They didn't draw their weapons. They didn't need to. Their presence alone shifted the balance of power irrevocably. They looked past Marcus Thorne, their eyes zeroing in on Harding with the cold, appraising stare of predators who had just identified a threat within their own ecosystem. Harding's world was collapsing in real time. The man he had profiled, harassed, and threatened was not just known to his captain, he was on a first-name basis with her. The smug certainty that had fueled his aggression evaporated, replaced by a rising tide of cold, nauseating dread. His hand, which had been gripping his taser, now trembled uncontrollably as he fumbled to reholster the weapon, the click of it seating in its holster sounding like a death knell. Captain Rostova moved past the now paralyzed Officer Harding without a second glance, her focus entirely on the man in the Audi. Her body cam provides a clear view of her approaching the driver's side window, her expression a mixture of professional apology and genuine personal concern. "Marcus, I am so profoundly sorry for this," she said, her voice low and earnest. "Are you harmed?"
"Are you okay?" Marcus simply offered a slow, deliberate nod, his composure an unbreachable fortress. "I'm fine, Eva. Thank you." He then powered off his own phone's video recording, the objective of creating a personal evidentiary record having been successfully achieved. With that small action, the immediate crisis was over, and the phase of accountability was about to begin. Rostova turned, and the full force of her command presence descended upon Dale Harding. The footage from BWC 701 is unflinching as it captures the utter ruin of the officer's face, the pallor, the sheen of sweat on his brow, the slight tremor in his jaw. "What were you thinking, Harding?" she demanded, her voice a low, controlled growl that was somehow more terrifying than a shout. "Did you observe a traffic violation?" He shook his head mutely. "Did you have a civilian complaint describing this vehicle or this individual in connection with a crime?" He swallowed hard, unable to speak. "Did you even bother to run the license plate before you initiated this stop?" Harding finally found his voice, a pathetic, reedy whisper. "No, Captain. I had a reasonable suspicion he was non-compliant." Rostova let out a short, sharp laugh, devoid of all humor. Non-compliant. Or was he just a black man in an expensive car in a neighborhood you felt he didn't belong in? She took a step closer, invading his space. "That man," she said, pointing a rigid finger toward the Audi, "is Senior Assistant United States Attorney Marcus Thorne. He is the lead federal prosecutor on the joint FBI-NPD task force that has taken down 2 major trafficking rings in this city in the last 18 months. He has put more violent felons in federal prison than your entire squad combined. And you, in your infinite wisdom, decided to detain him on your gut feeling and accuse him of grand theft auto." The silence that followed was absolute. The 2 FBI agents stood like statues, their faces grim masks of disapproval. The shift had changed. Harding was no longer the enforcer. He was the suspect in a career-ending crime. "You are relieved of duty, effective immediately," Rostova stated, each word a final, unappealable judgment. "Give me your weapon and your badge." She gestured to another uniformed officer who had arrived. "Officer Smith, escort Mr. Harding to my vehicle. Secure his equipment. He is to have no further contact with anyone." The public, irrefutable humiliation was complete, and the official process of quantifying his total destruction was now underway. The fallout from Dale Harding's 12-minute abuse of power was not a gradual decline. It was a catastrophic, immediate, and meticulously documented collapse. The official record of his downfall began the moment Captain Rostova relieved him of his badge and weapon on the quiet, sun-dappled pavement of Maple Avenue. The internal affairs investigation that followed was a mere formality, an exercise in administrative procedure rather than a genuine inquiry. The evidence against Harding was not just overwhelming, it was absolute. Investigators had access to 3 distinct video sources: the crystal-clear footage from Harding's own body cam, BWC 9154, which captured his escalating aggression and biased statements, the steady, damning recording from Marcus Thorne's personal cell phone, which documented the interaction from the victim's perspective, and the silent, wide-angle footage from 2 separate residential security systems, which provided objective, third-party corroboration of the entire event. Harding was presented with the compiled evidence in a sterile interrogation room 48 hours later. There was no defense to be mounted. His own words, his own actions had convicted him.
He was terminated for cause, a decision ratified unanimously by the city's review board. The official grounds cited were gross misconduct, violation of department policy on de-escalation, and a clear violation of Title 18, Section 242 of the U.S. Code, deprivation of rights under color of law. This for-cause termination triggered a clause in his employment contract that resulted in the immediate and total forfeiture of his city pension, a fund he had paid into for 14 years, which had a projected lifetime value of $850,000. This was only the first, devastating financial blow. The civil consequences were even more severe. Marcus Thorne, represented by a private civil rights firm to avoid any conflict of interest with the Department of Justice, filed a federal lawsuit against both Dale Harding personally and the city of Northgate Heights. The suit alleged unlawful detention, malicious prosecution, and a pattern of racially motivated policing, citing Harding's extensive history of citizen complaints as evidence of the city's deliberate indifference. The city's attorneys, faced with irrefutable video evidence and the high-profile status of the plaintiff, knew a jury trial would be an unmitigated disaster. They moved to settle immediately. The final settlement agreement was for a sum of $1.5 million. The city's insurance carrier covered $1.25 million, but a crucial and non-negotiable term of the settlement, insisted upon by Marcus Thorne's legal team, was that Dale Harding would be personally liable for the remaining $250,000. This clause was designed not just for compensation, but for punitive accountability. The sum was insurmountable. It forced him into personal bankruptcy.
His home, a 3-bedroom ranch house he had taken great pride in, was sold in a forced liquidation. His truck and any other assets of value were seized. The financial ruin was total. Professionally, he was rendered a ghost. His name was permanently added to the Brady Giglio list, a national database of law enforcement officers whose history of misconduct or dishonesty makes their testimony in court worthless. This designation was a career death sentence, making him fundamentally unemployable in any law enforcement or security capacity anywhere in the United States. No prosecutor would ever put him on a witness stand. The Department of Justice, with Marcus Thorne's office fully recused, followed through with a criminal indictment. Harding was charged with a federal misdemeanor for deprivation of rights under color of law. Facing the prospect of prison time, he accepted a plea bargain: 2 years of federal probation, 500 hours of community service, and mandatory enrollment in a racial bias sensitivity course. While he avoided incarceration, the conviction sealed his fate as a disgraced former officer and a convicted criminal. While Harding's life unraveled, Marcus Thorne's continued on its established trajectory of excellence. He was seen in federal court the following month, calmly and surgically dismantling the defense of a high-level narcotics trafficker, securing a conviction that led to a 30-year sentence. His reputation within the legal community was not harmed, it was enhanced. He became a case study in professional composure under duress, a man who had faced down prejudice not with anger, but with the unassailable power of the law he had sworn to uphold. The total quantified financial loss to Dale Harding, combining his forfeited pension, the personal liability from the settlement, and his lost future earnings, was independently calculated to be in excess of $2.2 million. All of this, the complete and total destruction of a man's life and career, was the direct result of a 12-minute decision fueled by a prejudice he refused to check. Was the price he paid for his bigotry high enough? Did the loss of his career, his home, and his reputation finally teach him that authority is not a weapon but a responsibility? The documented record offers no insight into his remorse, only the cold, hard facts of his ruin. Have you or someone you know ever witnessed an abuse of power like this? Share your story in the comments below, and if you believe in the power of documentation to bring justice, share this video with others.